Prince Harry is expected to win his bid to regain armed security while visiting the UK, according to reports. Sources told People magazine that there are positive signs from the government to reverse the decision to not grant Harry security.
The moment Prince Harry arrived at Highgrove, something felt different. The smiles were thinner, the silence heavier. Behind closed doors, Prince William placed a document on the table, one that would change everything. The Highgrove Accord, not a request, a demand. With legacy, titles, and future access on the line, Harry was left with no room to negotiate. And when Meghan learned what he had signed, her reaction shook their inner circle. Was this reconciliation or a calculated royal power move? 5,000 miles away. In Montecito, the morning arrived softly, almost politely. The sky was pale, the air calm, and the world outside moved at its usual gentle pace. It was the kind of dawn that suggested peace, routine, safety. But inside Meghan Markle's carefully ordered life, something felt off. Quietly, deeply wrong. It started with something small, something that should not have mattered, but did. Harry always checked in, always. It didn't matter where he was or how packed his schedule became. It didn't matter if he was crossing time zones or stepping out of meetings that ran too long. There was always a message, a short text, a voice note, a simple reassurance that said, "I'm fine, I'm here, we're good." That morning, there was nothing. No buzz from her phone, no missed call, no casual update sent out of habit, just silence. At first, Meghan didn't feel afraid. Fear came later. What she felt first was suspicion, a sharp, alert feeling that something was out of place. Harry was many things, but careless wasn't one of them. Silence from him wasn't normal. It was a break in a pattern that had never failed. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe he was delayed. Maybe he was in transit. Maybe the signal was weak. She placed the phone down, then picked it up again almost immediately. Instinct took over. Meghan opened their private security app, the one built for people whose lives carried unusual risks. It wasn't something ordinary families needed. It was designed for emergencies, for moments when uncertainty could quickly turn dangerous. Normally, the app loaded within seconds. A map would appear. A small dot would move slowly across it, showing Harry's real-time location. It was simple, reassuring, and always there. This time, the screen stayed blank. No dot, no signal, no location. Meghan stared at the empty map, her fingers suddenly cold against the glass. She refreshed it once, then again. Still nothing. Harry hadn't just gone offline. He had disappeared. Her breath tightened as understanding began to form. This wasn't a technical glitch. She knew enough, too much to recognize what this meant. Harry had entered what security professionals call a dead zone, a complete communications blackout. These zones weren't random. Phones didn't just lose signal by chance in places like that. Dead zones were created on purpose. They existed only around highly sensitive locations, places protected by layers of authority, old power, and strict control. Royal territory. Meghan felt her instincts flare like an alarm. Dead zones required permission, clearance, decisions made by people at the very top. Someone had allowed this to happen. Someone had planned it. Her thoughts raced as she moved quickly, opening her browser, scanning headlines. Her eyes moved faster than her mind, searching for anything that could explain what she was feeling. Then she saw it. A British headline, already spreading across media platforms, quietly but confidently confirming a private and undisclosed return of Prince Harry to the United Kingdom. No details, no photographs, no public schedule, just enough information to be dangerous. Meghan's body went cold. This wasn't a charity visit. This wasn't a friendly appearance or a casual stop. This was secretive, controlled, carefully managed. The kind of meeting that happened behind closed doors, away from cameras and explanations. And then came the final detail. Reports suggested that Prince William was present. Meghan didn't need anyone to explain what that meant. She understood immediately, with a clarity that made her chest feel tight. King Charles might negotiate. He might soften. He might listen, weigh emotions, and search for compromise. William didn't. William was different. He didn't reopen old discussions. He didn't leave loose ends. When he decided something was finished, it stayed finished. He didn't bend under pressure. He applied it. He didn't manage conflict. He ended it. And now, Harry was alone with him. No signal. No witnesses. No way out. Meghan stood still, phone in hand, as the calm Montecito morning continued outside, as if nothing had changed. Birds moved through the trees. The sun climbed higher. Life went on. But somewhere across the ocean, behind stone walls and silent corridors, Harry was walking back into a world he had once escaped. A world that operated by its own rules. A world that never truly let go. And for the first time since she had known him, Meghan had no way to reach him. Only silence. And the growing fear of what happens when doors close and don't reopen. Could this be the first time Harry would hurt Meghan with his actions? How did Meghan react to Prince Harry's return and the signing of the Highgrove Accord? Let's delve into the details of the misunderstanding that erupted between the couple. Different rhythms, shared lives. Reports suggest that tension is quietly building between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, not because of one major argument, but due to a series of small misunderstandings that seem to be piling up over time. What might appear minor on the surface is slowly turning into something heavier, shaping their daily interactions and the direction they each want their lives to take. At the heart of it all is a growing difference in priorities, pace, and purpose. According to these reports, Prince Harry appears to be entering a reflective phase of his life. Rather than chasing constant activity or public attention, he is said to be drawn more strongly toward philanthropic work and long-term legacy projects. For Harry, this is not just about staying busy or maintaining relevance. It is about meaning. He wants his efforts to matter, not just today, but years from now. He seems to be asking himself deeper questions about impact, fulfillment, and how he wants to be remembered. Meghan, on the other hand, is reportedly responding to the situation with a sense of urgency. From her perspective, time, momentum, and action are critical. She appears eager to move forward, push ideas into reality, and keep projects alive and visible. This difference in approach, Harry's slow, thoughtful pace versus Meghan's drive and immediacy, is said to be creating friction between them. What makes the situation more delicate is that these tensions are not necessarily about disagreement over values. Both are known for their interest in humanitarian causes and public service. The problem seems to lie in how and when those goals should be pursued. While Meghan may see consistent effort and visible progress as essential, Harry appears less convinced that constant grinding is the right path for him at this stage of life. Sources quoted in the report suggest that Harry's lack of excitement for non-stop work has become a major source of frustration for Meghan. His calmer, more reserved attitude is reportedly testing her patience. One insider claimed that his low enthusiasm is driving Meghan crazy and has started to bring unresolved feelings to the surface. Over time, this has allegedly led to resentment, the kind that grows quietly when expectations are not met or clearly discussed. For Harry, however, this reluctance does not come from laziness or lack of care. Instead, it seems to come from a desire for authenticity. He wants to feel deeply connected to whatever he commits his time and energy to. He reportedly does not want to pour himself into projects that feel forced, rushed, or empty. To him, life's work should feel meaningful, not exhausting or hollow. This difference highlights a deeper emotional divide. Harry appears to be motivated by inner fulfillment, work that aligns with his sense of self and values. Meghan, meanwhile, seems motivated by momentum, ensuring that efforts translate into action, progress, and results. Neither approach is wrong, but when they are not aligned, they can easily clash. Another layer to this tension is the pressure that comes with their public status. Every move they make is watched, analyzed, and judged. That kind of scrutiny can turn small personal disagreements into much bigger emotional challenges. Decisions that might be simple for a private couple can feel overwhelming when played out on a global stage. There is also the question of timing. Harry may feel that this stage of his life calls for reflection and purpose-driven choices, especially after years of intense media pressure and personal loss. Meghan, however, may feel that now is the time to act decisively, build influence, and secure a clear direction for their shared future. When timing does not match, even shared dreams can feel like opposing goals. The report paints a picture of two people who care deeply but are struggling to move in the same rhythm. Harry's desire for depth and meaning seems to slow things down, while Meghan's urgency pushes things forward. Without careful communication, this gap can widen, turning small misunderstandings into emotional distance. Ultimately, the situation reflects a very human challenge. Many couples face moments where personal growth takes different shapes. One partner may want to pause and reflect, while the other wants to move fast and build. When these differences are not addressed with patience and empathy, frustration can grow on both sides. Whether these reported tensions will ease or intensify remains to be seen. What is clear, however, is that Prince Harry is seeking purpose over pressure, and Meghan Markle is seeking progress over pause. Finding a balance between those two desires may be the key to easing the strain and helping them move forward together. What could have influenced Prince Harry's decision to return home secretly without his wife's knowledge? Was he facing a threat in the US? Let's find out. The trap behind the title. The palace has weathered scandals for centuries. Affairs, leaked tapes, explosive interviews. None of these truly frighten the monarchy. What the palace fears most is something far more dangerous and far less dramatic on the surface. Instability. Scandal can be explained away, waited out, or buried under tradition. Instability, however, shakes the very structure that keeps the royal system standing. And at this moment, instability was exactly what loomed. Far from the grand halls of Buckingham Palace, a quiet but serious threat was forming across the Atlantic, in Washington, D.C. What many dismissed at first as political noise had begun to take a sharper, more dangerous shape. The Heritage Foundation, a powerful conservative think tank, was no longer merely asking questions. It was pushing hard for access to Prince Harry's U.S. visa records, arguing that the public had a right to know how he entered and remained in the country. This was not gossip. This was law. If those records were opened and inconsistencies were found, the consequences could be severe, ranging from public embarrassment to legal complications that no amount of royal press strategy could fix. And, for the first time since Harry stepped away from royal duties, he was standing exposed, because Harry no longer had the shield that once surrounded him. For years, his royal status functioned like invisible armor. It didn't matter where he went or what he did. There was always an unspoken understanding that he was protected. Diplomatic courtesy followed him. Legal gray areas bent gently in his favor. Doors stayed open. But that protection depended on something very specific, something most people overlooked. Prince Harry is still, on paper, a counselor of state. This role is not symbolic. Councillors of state are senior royals legally permitted to step in for the monarch when needed. The position carries weight, authority, and most importantly, diplomatic cover. It signals to governments and institutions that the individual is still part of the constitutional core of the monarchy. Yet the role comes with conditions. One of them is simple but critical. The Councillor of State must maintain a residence in the United Kingdom. Not visit, not claim emotional ties. Maintain a residence. And this is where everything began to unravel. Harry did not have one. When Frogmore Cottage was taken away, it was framed publicly as a housing decision, a matter of downsizing, a practical choice, but legally, it was something far more serious. With the loss of Frogmore, Harry lost his only official base on British soil. No keys, no lease, no legal address. In the eyes of the law, he was effectively homeless in the UK. That single fact quietly weakened his status, and with it, the protection that status provided. If challenged, his position as a Councillor of State could be questioned. If questioned, it could be suspended. If suspended, the diplomatic shield disappeared. Suddenly, Harry was not just a prince living abroad. He was a private individual with a famous name, facing scrutiny under U.S. law without the safety net he once took for granted. This is the moment Prince William noticed the shift. William understands the monarchy not as a family drama, but as an institution. He sees leverage where others see emotion, and he recognized that the palace now held something it hadn't had in years, a quiet advantage. Harry needed protection. Not public sympathy, not apologies, not symbolic gestures. He needed legal grounding, and there was only one way to secure it. He would have to return to the United Kingdom, not for a visit, not for a ceremony, not for a headline-making reunion. He would have to return in a way that restored his legal footing. That meant a real residence, a documented presence, a formal reattachment to the system he had walked away from. In other words, if Harry wanted the safety that came with being royal, he would have to accept the rules of royalty again. This changed everything. For the first time since Megxit, the balance of power subtly shifted. The palace no longer needed to chase Harry. Harry, whether he liked it or not, needed something from the palace. And William knew it. This wasn't about punishment. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control and continuity. The monarchy cannot afford uncertainty, especially not from someone whose actions could trigger legal, diplomatic, or constitutional ripples across two countries. So the message, whether spoken aloud or not, was clear. Protection has a price, and the price was not emotional reconciliation. It was compliance, legal alignment, a return on the monarchy's terms. This was the leverage, not loud, not cruel, but precise. In royal history, the most powerful moves are rarely announced. They happen quietly through documents, residences, and legal definitions. And at this moment, the palace was not afraid of scandal breaking in the press. It was afraid of losing control over what happened next. And that is why this situation mattered far more than anyone realized. What kind of welcome did Prince Harry get? What kind of agreement did he sign? With whom did he sign the agreement? Let's find out. The Iron Vault. Harry was guided away from the familiar warmth of the palace corridors, away from open halls and friendly faces, toward a part of royal life few ever saw. The air grew cooler as he descended a tight staircase carved from old stone. Each step felt deliberate, final. At the bottom was a heavy steel door. Once it closed, there would be no easy way back. This place was known quietly among senior royals as the Iron Vault. It had no windows, no clocks, no cameras, no phones, nothing that could record a word, a sound, or a memory. What happened here stayed here. Forever. It was the silent heart of the Duchy of Cornwall, where the Crown kept its most dangerous truths and its most powerful agreements. Documents that could protect kingdoms or destroy reputations in a single stroke. Harry had heard whispers of this room growing up, but he never imagined he would stand inside it. The door shut behind him with a dull, final thud. At the center of the room sat a narrow table. On it rested a single leather folder, smooth with age, its edges worn by history. No dramatic labels, no royal crest on display, just a quiet weight that seemed to press down on the air itself. Prince William stood on the other side, calm, composed, almost distant. This was not the brother Harry used to wrestle with as a child or laugh with behind palace walls. This was the future king. William gestured toward the folder. Inside lay a document known only to a few, the Highgrove Accord. At first glance, it looked like a lifeline. The agreement offered Harry something he had quietly lost: security on British soil. A long-term lease to a protected UK residence. With it came restored legal standing, diplomatic protections, and a strengthened visa position. It promised safety, stability, and a clear path back into royal protection. On paper, it felt like a rescue. But before Harry could read further, his eyes fell on the pages clipped to the front. A permanent, non-disclosure agreement. Not temporary, not limited. Permanent. Its meaning was simple and terrifying. Silence. No more memoirs, no more interviews, no podcasts, no documentaries, no his side of the story, no future revelations, spoken, written, hinted, or implied. Not about the family, not about the institution, not about the past, not ever. Harry felt his chest tighten. This was not a request. It was the cost. William did not shout. He did not accuse. There was no anger in his voice. That made it worse. He spoke quietly, carefully, as if laying out the rules of gravity. With the protection of the Crown, Harry would remain shielded. Legal storms could be managed. Diplomatic walls would stand firm. Doors would remain closed to hostile action. Without it, Harry would stand alone. Alone against lawsuits, alone against courts that did not bend for titles. Alone in a system where royal history meant nothing and family ties offered no shelter. William did not threaten him. He didn't need to. He simply explained how things worked. This was reality. Harry's mind raced. He thought of the years he had spent speaking out, telling stories, believing that truth would bring freedom. He thought of the battles already fought and the ones still waiting beyond the horizon. Then his thoughts turned to his children. Their faces, their laughter, their future. He imagined them growing up without protection, without inheritance, without the safety net that generations of royals had taken for granted. He imagined headlines, courtrooms, uncertainty, a life where every mistake carried a heavier cost because no institution stood behind them. This wasn't just about him anymore. It never had been. A quiet hum filled the room as a clock somewhere deep within the vault marked time Harry could not see. William glanced at his watch. "The helicopter leaves in 10 minutes, he said evenly. 10 minutes to choose between a voice and a shield, between telling his story and securing his family's future, between fighting the past and sealing it away. Harry sat down slowly. The leather chair creaked beneath him. His hands hovered above the folder. He read the final lines again, hoping, somehow, that they would change. They did not. The pen lay beside the document, black and heavy, waiting. For a moment, Harry closed his eyes. He thought of everything he had already said, everything he would never say again. He felt the weight of history pressing against the future, asking for silence in exchange for safety. When he opened his eyes, his expression had changed. He picked up the pen. William said nothing. He simply watched. The signature took only seconds. A name, a line, a quiet scratch of ink against paper. When Harry set the pen down, the room felt different. Lighter, yet colder. The iron vault had claimed another secret. The door opened once more, and as Harry walked back toward the waiting helicopter, he knew one thing for certain. Some deals do not end stories. They bury them. What is the outcome of the agreement that was signed by Prince Harry? Was it of benefit to him? What about his marriage? What could have hurt Meghan the most? Let's take a look at how Prince Harry's marriage got hit as he secured his spot in the palace. The cost of survival. As the helicopter finally rose into the wet, restless night, its blades cutting through sheets of rain, Harry felt the familiar vibration in his pocket. An aide placed his phone back into his hand. The signal returned. The dead zone was gone. Almost instantly, the screen lit up. Messages flooded in. Alerts, updates, reactions, news notifications stacking on top of one another as if the world had been holding its breath and could now exhale. Names appeared. Numbers he recognized. Voices from advisors, lawyers, old contacts, and distant allies, all speaking at once through short, urgent lines of text. But there was one name that did not appear. Not Meghan. There were no missed calls waiting impatiently at the top of the screen. No long messages typed in anger or fear. No sharp questions demanding answers. Just an empty space where her voice should have been. And silence, especially this kind of silence, is never empty. It speaks. 5,000 miles away, Meghan did not need a call to understand what had just happened. She did not need Harry to explain or confirm anything. The moment the leaks began to surface, carefully worded reports, unnamed sources, familiar phrases, she knew. She had learned long ago how the palace moved, how power worked behind closed doors. Prince William does not meet to talk things through. He does not sit down to trade feelings or search for common ground. When he calls a meeting, it is not an invitation. It is a decision already made, waiting to be accepted. This was not about reconciliation. It was about control. Harry, in that moment, believed he had done what was necessary. Faced with pressure closing in from all sides, legal risks, security concerns, endless scrutiny, he had chosen protection. Protection for his children, protection for his name, protection from battles that could stretch on for years and consume whatever peace he had left. But protection always comes with a cost. In choosing that path, Harry had also chosen secrecy. He had chosen to carry the weight alone, to decide first and explain later. And without fully realizing it, he had chosen distance over partnership. Trust does not always break in dramatic ways. It does not always come with shouting, slammed doors, or final words spoken in anger. Sometimes it breaks quietly, almost politely. A decision made without consultation. A truth revealed too late. A silence that lingers a little longer than it should. And once broken, trust does not simply disappear. It changes shape. It settles into new corners of a relationship and begins to influence every future conversation, every pause, every unanswered message. Harry stepped off the helicopter believing he had secured his family's future. In his mind, the worst dangers had been pushed back. The legal storm had been contained. The immediate threats had been managed. The Highgrove operation, as it would later be whispered about, was over. On paper, it was a success. But marriages are not built on paper victories. What Harry did not yet see was that while he was fighting external battles, an internal one had quietly taken root. Meghan's silence was not confusion. It was clarity. She understood what his choice meant, not just politically or legally, but emotionally. It meant that when things became critical, he turned inward instead of turning to her. It meant that when power pressed down, he chose old systems over shared decisions. It meant that the line between us and them had blurred, just enough to hurt. The legal war may have ended, but something far more personal had begun. Inside the Sussex household, questions would now linger unspoken. Not accusations shouted across a room, but doubts whispered in the mind late at night. Was this the last secret, or just the first? If one decision could be made alone, how many others might follow? And unlike before, there would be no palace walls to absorb the damage, no courtiers to manage the fallout, no royal machinery to soften the emotional cost. This was no longer about headlines or institutions. It was about two people navigating the fragile space between loyalty and independence. This time, there would be nowhere to hide. So, do you think the agreement Harry signed was worth it? Is Meghan's reaction justified? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.